This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with a Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I think you can be very successful even though you don't have a clear plan, even though you don't know exactly where you're going. And that success can be something that emerges from just exploring and experimenting. When we let go of those linear goals, that means that everybody can finally get to explore their own definition of success. And you can stop comparing yourself to other people. You can create your own sandbox where it doesn't matter if you're climbing a ladder and if you're climbing the same ladder other people are climbing.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 674 with guest Anne-Laure Le Cunff. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Do you remember in one of my last Coming Home to Yourself episodes, I was talking about how excited I was that I just interviewed a woman who was a neuroscientist about something she calls tiny experiments? This is that episode. I cannot wait for you to hear it. But before we do, I wanted to make sure that you knew that How to Stop Feeling Like Shit 8-week experience is open for registration. We start May 15th. You can still sign up after we start if you're listening to this late. If you're coming in on 2 wheels, that's okay. I wanted to tell you, though, what we're going to do. What are you going to walk away with in this program? So every week, it's 8 weeks. There's a week of integration. So we actually meet for 9 weeks. We're going to dive into a core theme every week. These are core themes that have most likely been holding you back. If you resonated with How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, the book, you're going to love this program. Even if you never read it, even if you never read the book, it's not a prerequisite to join the class. Every week, we're going to lean into a core theme. My hope is, the goal is that you can finally learn how to shift it for good. This isn't about fixing yourself. This is not a program about fixing yourself. It's about finally understanding what's going on beneath the surface so you can move differently through it. Because what typically happens is that we don't know exactly what it is that's 7 layers deep, the root of the problem. And so that's what keeps us stuck. That's what keeps us spinning. So my hope is, in this 8-week experience, you're going to figure out, understand what's going on beneath the surface so you can move through it differently, anywhere from overthinking and burnout to clarity and momentum, things like that. You're going to start doing what actually moves the needle instead of remaining stuck. So head on over to AndreaOwen.com/habits-course. Of course, that link will be in the show notes. AndreaOwen.com/habits-course. There is a early bird price break that is good for another few days. And we also have a bonus call coming up this coming Monday. One of the things I love about this program that I've added in is accountability calls, is our co-working calls. We have our hour of group coaching that we normally do. And then there's optional calls that's on a different day during the week where you can come and actually do the work. It's a secret how we're going to do it. I just wanted to build in some kind of accountability in a group program, and I did it. So that's this. I would love to see you there. I'm only offering this year. So for those of you saying, "Oh, I can't make it this time, but I'll make sure and catch you next time," you're going to be waiting a while. You're going to be waiting a long time. And I know you want to be in on it now. How to Stop Feeling Like Shit 8-week experience. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about today's wonderful guest. Anne-Laure Le Cunff is an award-winning neuroscientist and entrepreneur. She is the founder of Ness Labs, where her weekly newsletter is read by more than 100,000 curious minds. Her research at King's College London focuses on the psychology and neuroscience of lifelong learning, curiosity, and adaptability. Her new book, Tiny Experiments, is a transformative guide for living a more experimental life, turning uncertainty into curiosity and carving a path of self-discovery. Her work has been featured in Rolling Stone, Forbes, Financial Times, and Wired. Okay, I also forgot to say, this is not part of her bio, but in the first couple of questions, I think I asked her 2 questions and my microphone was not turned on. So you're hearing different microphone. So there's a shift. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is a professional podcast, but sometimes I get so excited when there's a guest on that I really want to talk to you. I forget to check my settings, and that happened today. Anyway, so without further ado, here is Anne-Laure.
Anne-Laure, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am always excited to have someone on who talks about a specific topic that we often talk about on the show, but they have a different perspective. So that's one of the many reasons I'm really excited about this particular topic. So let's start from the very beginning. And the book is Tiny Experiments: How to Live Freely in a Goal-Obsessed World. So how does, and I know that a lot of people, my listeners, are their ears just perked up because they tend to be high achievers. They love to check off the boxes, set goals, and achieve them. And so how does living, in your opinion, how does living in a quote unquote goal-obsessed culture, goal-obsessed world affect our mental health and our well-being and even our sense of self-worth?
Yeah, so if you think about the definition of success that we seem to all have agreed on as a society, it's all about having this big ambition and then a vision, a plan, and then you work really hard to get there. That's a very linear approach to success, right? It kind of implies that you need to be very clear in terms of what it is you want to achieve with your life. The other issue in today's world is that if you add the layer that we have that didn't exist a few decades ago of social media, it's as if there was a giant leaderboard. We were all looking at, just comparing ourselves to each other, comparing our goals and comparing our progress. Because of social media, it has become a lot easier to look at each other's progress and say, how come this person who was in school with me is up there while I'm still here? Am I working fast enough? Am I being productive enough? Am I being successful enough? And so to me, that's the issue with the obsession with goals that we have at the moment. First, they assume that you should know where you're going. This is an assumption I want to question. I think you can be very successful even though you don't have a clear plan, even though you don't know exactly where you're going. And that success can be something that emerges from just exploring and experimenting. Second, I think that when we let go of those linear goals, that means that everybody can finally get to explore their own definition of success. And you can stop comparing yourself to other people. You can create your own sandbox where it doesn't matter if you're climbing a ladder and if you're climbing the same ladder other people are climbing.
Okay, I'm already obsessed with your work. So you actually brought me back to when I was in high school, and this was in the early 90s. This was long before social media even. I had a handful of friends who knew exactly what they wanted to major in college, knew what college they wanted to go to, were making steps to get ready to apply and get into those colleges, had these long-term goals, and that I made up came naturally to them. Who knows? Maybe their parents were putting them on there. A, I had no idea. And B, I didn't care. I didn't even take my SATs in high school, partly because my parents were like, what is that? Second, because it just didn't matter to me. And then I felt shame for it when everyone graduated and went off to college. And I grew up in San Diego, and I would go visit my friends and go to parties at UCLA and and then I started to realize oh, I'm a loser. That's sort of what I brought on myself because I wasn't on the same trajectory that they were. Who knows if they were actually even happy or anything like that. And so, right, that comes down to the next question I want to ask you is because it seems to me that as humans, uncertainty is incredibly vulnerable. And we love certainty. We're much happier when we are. But can you tell us, from a neuroscience perspective, why are we so afraid of uncertainty, specifically around our careers?
Yeah, so our fear of uncertainty makes a lot of sense from an evolutionary perspective. When you think about our ancestors and the environment in which they were evolving, the more information they had, the more certain they felt the more likely they were to survive. So where are the resources? Who are the different players? What is this threat over there? Is that a threat, friend or foe? When you know what's going on, when you have knowledge about your environment, you're more likely to survive. Another source of uncertainty is how people perceive us. And again, from an evolutionary perspective, you really have to remember that in the past, being rejected from the tribe meant certain death. And our brains haven't evolved that much. They haven't changed that much. So this is still deeply encoded that you don't want to be rejected by the tribe. You want to be accepted. You want to belong. That means following the rules. That means following a script. That means doing the same thing that everybody is expected to do and contributing to society in a way that is legible, that looks helpful. And this is why we don't like having uncertainty in our careers, because we feel like if we don't look like we know what we're doing, if we don't look like we know where we're going, we might not be perceived by others as a useful member of society. We might be rejected. And again, our brain interprets it as death. We want to feel certain. We want to have a plan, and we want this plan to be legible to other people. We want to be able to say, hey, this is my contribution.
That part is so important. Like, not only do we, that's something I've never realized. Like, not only do we want to have a plan, but we want that plan is what you're saying. Like, we want that plan to not only like, we want other people to see it, first of all, and also have it make sense to them. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. We want people to look at us and see this us as someone who's useful. We want people to look at us and be able to say, "Oh, that's what Anne-Laure is doing. That's what she's contributing. She's so helpful. What would we do without her?" And so if you have the type of career where you're working on a different project every month and you're exploring different ideas and it's this very non-linear approach to your career, then other people might be confused. And the reality is that they won't care. Nobody will care in our society. But again, your brain is scared of how people might judge you for not contributing in a useful way to society.
Okay. I'm having so many light bulb moments on here. So I'm certified in the work of Dr. Brene Brown, and one of the modules in that facilitation, out of the 12 modules, it is my favorite, and it's called Ideal and Unwanted Identities. I talked about it I just ran a journaling program and we talked about it. I talked about it in How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, my second book. And it basically talks about what you just said around our fear of the perception of others, and how with every role that we have in life, we have a list, and it's usually subconscious in our, unconscious mind, of ways we never want to be perceived by others. And because we have no control over that, we will end up falling into it or even be at risk of it. And that triggers shame, which points back to exactly what you're saying. And I have found it so helpful personally, and this is what I teach my clients. It's like, find out what that list is, because whether you know it or not, it's driving the bus of your thoughts, your decisions, your behaviors. This is where perfectionism starts, people pleasing, all of those things. So I love that you've basically talked about that and probably either done research or looked at research around this. Like, I'm getting excited because I'm like, yes. Well, I want to use this segue to ask you about what you call tiny experiments. How can they help someone find their personalized map to a more fulfilling life?
So tiny experiments are really about letting go of those linear goals that give us the illusion of certainty. There are very often goals that we choose based on what we think would please people around us or make us be perceived as being successful and a good contributor to society, and really replacing that with, instead of focusing on this outcome, this illusion of certainty, focusing on what makes you feel curious, what you might want to explore. And it's really about adopting what I call an experimental mindset. It's pretending that you're the scientist of your own life and you can actually try new things. You can collect your own data and you can make decisions based on your own experiences, not based on what other people might expect you to do. So the way you design a tiny experiment is very simple. You choose an action that you want to test based on something you're curious about, and you commit to it for a duration. I call this a pact. It's in the format of I will do this thing, this action for this duration. So, for example, you could say, I will write a weekly newsletter for 6 weeks, or I will give a presentation at work every month for 6 months. I will action for duration. And the reason why I call these tiny experiments and not big experiments is because there is often, especially for people who are already highly curious and ambitious, there's a temptation to go with something really, really big. And I tell everyone,
and not only that, but like, I'm going to get married to this. It's going to be forever and ever. Amen. That's the measure of success, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Very big, very ambitious, forever commitment when you have never tried the thing. You don't know if you like it, right? And so instead of going for this big change that you're not sure is going to actually work for you, a tiny experiment is a short-term commitment to taking that idea very seriously. So for a short duration, you're actually going to try this, really take it seriously, collect your own data.
Yeah.
And at the end of the experiment, you can look back and you can ask yourself, just like a scientist, what worked? What didn't work? Do I want to keep going? Do I want to maybe tweak my approach a little bit? Or do I want to stop? Maybe now that I've tried it, I know that writing a newsletter is not something I want to do.
Yeah.
Maybe public speaking is not something I'm interested in. Maybe I don't want to give those presentations. But now I know it's based on my own data that I have collected myself.
Oh my gosh, I am obsessed with this. Okay, so we do need to take a quick ad break before I get up on my soapbox about what you just said. When we get back, I want to comment on that. So we'll be right back, everybody.
Long gone are the days of waiting to be seen in a doctor's office only to have that awkward conversation with your healthcare provider. Wisp gives you access to sexual and reproductive healthcare from the comfort of your home. Get treatment for BV, yeast infections, UTIs, and much more delivered directly to your home or ready for pickup at your local pharmacy in less than 3 hours. The best part? Wisp is discreet, convenient, and you don't need medical insurance to receive care or prescription medication. Visit us today at hellowisp.com.
Let's be honest, life is a lot right now. Stress is high, anxiety is creeping in, and it's easy to feel like you're barely holding it together. If that's where you're at, or even if you simply love feeling a little more grounded, Headspace might be exactly what you need. It's the app that's helped me feel more grounded, less overwhelmed, and so much calmer. Whether it's guided meditations, breathing exercises, or a quick calming tool, it's full of practices that actually work. And no matter where you are on your mindfulness journey, total newbie or someone who's been meditating for years or somewhere in between like I am, there's always something that meets you right where you are. Honestly, every time I open the app, it feels like it was made just for me. When I'm short on time, those go-to sessions are perfect. I absolutely love their breathing exercises. And with over 1,000 hours of content, I can always find something that fits my day and my mood. So if you're ready to actually mean it when you say, I'm good, Headspace can help. Feel good and mean it when you say it. For a limited time, get Headspace free for 60 days. Go to headspace.com/makesomenoise. That's HEADSPACE.com/makesomenoise to unlock all of Headspace free for 60 days. Headspace.com/makesomenoise. When you think of mom, what comes to mind? Maybe it's strength, patience, love. Maybe it's the way she showed up for you in 1,000 tiny unspoken ways. It can mean creating a soft place to land inside yourself, even if your story around mom looks different. Here on the podcast, we talk a lot about reparenting yourself. And with that, motherhood can absolutely mean nurturing you, because motherhood can be complicated for some. Some of us were shaped by amazing moms. Some of us are moms. Some of us mother ourselves every single day. However it looks for you, you deserve comfort, sanctuary, and softness. That's where Cozy Earth comes in. Their bedding and bamboo pajamas, literal healing energy. I wear their bamboo PJs and it's like being wrapped in the coziest hug. They're temperature regulating, breathable, and so soft you'll never want to take them off. To celebrate moms everywhere, use code NOISE for 40% off your entire order because she deserves the best. Get yourself or someone you love something that feels like home at Cozy Earth with 40% off your order using code NOISE. All right, we're back. I love that so much because I'm a big ambitious person. Like I am an Aries, I'm an ENFJ. Like I will jump in with both feet with my arms wide open, but my eyes closed because and I'm much better at this. And I talk to my clients about this all the time, is that it's the part that you said about the time period that I love so much. Because I cannot tell you how many clients I have had who have come to me and they're like, I really need to start exercising again, even if it's just walking my dog every day. And they beat themselves up for being at this place before, creating a fitness goal, and then falling off the wagon. And what I just started telling them is, in my experience, the only people who stay solid with a goal like that are people who do that for a living. Honestly, I used to be in the fitness industry before I came into this 15 to 20 years ago. That was it. Like everyone else, it's cyclical, it's seasonal. It is a constant, like on and off the horse over and over again. And the more you beat yourself up, the worse you're going to feel. And the less you're going to get back onto the goal. So I love this so much. And did you want to speak to that before I ask you the next question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the other problem with social media as well, is that we have all of these examples of people who are pursuing those big goals with a lot more resources than we have. And by resources, I don't mean just money. I mean time, energy, attention.
Ability.
They're not splitting their attention in between 1,000 different things. And we measure our success based on their success, and we feel like we're not doing enough. And there's, again, this sense of shame and self-blame that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I had some of the best advice I ever got was very early on in this career. So it was around 2010. I had a mentor, and my children who are teenagers now, they were babies at the time, and I was just starting this business online, and I had so much ambition and excitement, and I was comparing myself to these, we call them marketing bros. So they're these men who are single, 30 years old, maybe they're married, definitely no kids, or if they do, they're not taking care of them. And so she told me, first of all, be careful who your teachers are. Second of all, kind of no matter who your teacher is, what's going to be the reality of this is going to feel like dog years for you, because I was also the primary caregiver of two small children while I was also trying to raise a business. And so that was so helpful to me to put that in perspective around what you just said. Like you got to look around at what your resources are versus someone else who's telling you how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why I think tiny experiments can be so helpful, because you can still take inspiration from some of the people that you're following on social media. But what you're seeing them do should only be the seed of the basis for designing your own tiny experiment. So instead of copy pasting whatever they're doing, as if they had the same life, the same circumstances, the same constraints that you have, which is not the case. It's never the case. You can say, oh, interesting. This person has been maybe, experimenting with their diet or with the way their stretching routine, their sleep routine, whatever it is. What is the tiny version of this that I can try and that actually fits with my life, my current lifestyle, my current commitments?
Okay. I love that. I want to ask you about a very specific behavior, and I call it a coping mechanism sometimes, because it comes up a lot with my audience, and that's perfectionism. Because I feel like perfectionism is directly related to this, and it can be a barrier to so many different things: fulfillment, happiness, quote unquote, success, even progress. So how does adopting an experimental approach or mindset help us to let go of perfectionism?
What's interesting with experiments is that it completely changes your relationship to success and failure. So when you have a linear goal with a specific outcome where you want to get to that destination, well, it's very binary. Either you get there, that's success, or you don't get there, and that's failure. There are so many problems with this. Sometimes you don't get there, and obviously you're very disappointed, but sometimes you also get there and you realize that happiness was not hiding on the other side of that milestone. You're still the same person with still the same problems, and you're also disappointed. When you're running an experiment, failure is a part of learning. You need failure in order to learn. It's just a data point. So you're running your experiment, and there might be a day where you can't do it. So maybe you don't write the newsletter that day. Maybe you don't post the post on social media. Maybe you don't do the presentation, whatever it is that you wanted to experiment with. With a linear mindset, you would beat yourself up saying, oh, I didn't do the thing. I said I would do the thing. Why didn't I do the thing? With an experimental mindset, you make a note of it. You write down, "Oh, I didn't do it today. Why? Is
Yeah.
it because I was procrastinating? Is it because it didn't sound interesting? Is it because I was really tired? Because maybe yesterday I had to take care of my kid who was sick until very late and so didn't sleep enough. And it was really hard to do that thing today. Is it because life got in the way? And when you pay attention to those different signals, at the end of the experiment, you can look back and you can have an honest conversation with yourself where you can say, actually, I did care a lot about this experiment. I love it. I want to keep going. And I missed it a few times, but that was honestly not my fault. These things happened. Or, I missed 5 days out of 10, and I can't really find any good reason to justify this. Maybe that means that is not something I'm actually interested in. I saw my friends doing it. I thought I would like it, but I don't. But that's great. It's not failure. Now I know.
It's just data. That's what I tell my clients when I'm working with someone and we have our introductory session, and then in the next session we're kind of figuring out what it is that they want, how to get there, and then we co-create together assignments for them. And I always tell them, especially if they're new to coaching, I always say, number one, I absolutely don't want you to do this for me. The accountability can help for sure. And use that like, well, Andrea's going to ask this about me when I meet up with her again. But I assure them, I will not be mad. I will not fire you. I will not judge you, shame you, none of that. If you don't do what you say that you're going to do, that's just data for us. It's just information. And then we'll go from there. And then we course correct, we renegotiate, like I'll coach you on that. So I always want to make that very clear in terms of coaching, like that relationship, as well as their own growth and self-awareness. Like I didn't even realize that I was following your your way of doing things, but that's so important because like at the end of the day, like when we're done working together, and if they've only followed through on things because they did it for me to please me and to look a certain way to me, that is not going to serve them when we're done working together. In fact, I would argue that it could cause more harm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're saying that you've been doing that for a while without knowing exactly what it was and knowing that this was an experimental mindset, because I really think about my work as common sense backed by science. And this is really what it is. And I love it when people tell me, oh, I can't believe this is something I've been doing, but I didn't have the exact framework or the exact language to talk about it. But when you think about it, there are so many ways of doing things, of navigating the world, of navigating our emotions that we know already. We know already this is something that deep down we know we should be doing. And we see ourselves when we help a friend, or in your case, a coaching client, we're very good at having this mindset. We're very good at telling them, this is okay, this is just data, like what can you learn from this? Somehow, most of us have a different standard when it comes to ourselves. We're a lot harsher. We have a lot less flexibility. And we don't treat failure in the same way when it's in ourselves versus when we see a friend who's struggling.
Right.
And this is really interesting, this double standard we have for the people around us we care about and the way we treat ourselves.
I agree, because you're absolutely right. And to be honest, I've done that to myself too. Like I'll give that same grace to my clients. But I was just thinking, this week, as we're recording this, I've been on a roll posting on Instagram because I have this special podcast series that I'm releasing right now that's leading up to my 50th birthday. And I've been posting on Instagram every week for the past several times a week for the past, 6 or 7 weeks. And this week I missed yesterday. And I think like one time last week too. And I was starting to beat myself up for it. And then I remembered like I had a whole ass manuscript that I had to turn into my editor. That was a deadline. That was Friday, as well as this other thing that's like a big personal thing going on. It's like, sometimes it's an experiment. It's like, it is still working. It's still success. Life happens. And so, okay, we need to take one more ad break, but when we get back, you're making me realize that I did a tiny experiment over the last couple of years in terms of dating. So this is juicy. We'll be right back, everyone. Real quick, did you know your metabolism impacts literally everything? From your energy levels to how well you sleep to how your body responds to food and workouts. Yep, it's all connected. So when I found Lumen, it was a total game changer. It's this sleek little handheld device that measures your metabolism just by breathing into it. You wake up, take a breath into Lumen, and boom, it tells you if you're burning mostly carbs or fat and gives you a personalized plan for the day. What I love is that it doesn't just give you the data, it actually tells you what to do with it, whether you want to fuel your workouts better or stabilize your energy. It's got you. Plus, Lumen adjusts to your cycle and hormones. So hello, support through perimenopause. It's like having a tiny metabolic coach in your pocket, and it's made me feel more in control of my health than ever before. If you're ready to stop guessing and start understanding your body, check out Lumen. The warmer months are coming. Spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/noise to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/noise for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Okay, we're back. And I realized that I did a tiny experiment. So last summer, I moved out. I was separated from my soon-to-be ex-husband, but we were still living in the same house for a little bit. And I finally moved out. And I decided, okay, if I am ever, this is my second marriage, and I'm like, if I'm ever going to fall in love again, and I don't know if I'm ever going to want to get married for the third time, but if I ever even consider that, there are some things I need to learn about myself before I do that. I'm going to do, and I called it, I didn't call it tiny experiments, but I called it, I'm going to have an experiment. Others might call it a hoe phase, tomato, whatever. But I knew, and I was very transparent with everyone that I met and said, I'm here. This is the point I am in my life. Here are the things that I'm trying to figure out for myself. Like, in other words, and I would tell them, I have no intention of being in a whole ass relationship with someone. Would you like to spend some time with me? And I was always really honest. And I called it collecting data because I had some questions to ask about my sexuality, about what I wanted, about what I was willing to tolerate. And just, it was a really magical time. And my hope is that everyone can have this time in their life with such freedom and also the capacity for self-awareness. It was almost kind of like I was standing outside of myself and watching and taking notes on a clipboard. And I called it an experiment. And I'll tell you what, at the end of that summer, not only did I have so much data about myself that probably would have taken me so long to collect in therapy and reading books and all of those things, but the intentionality of it gave me so many answers. And I met someone at the end of the summer, and we've been in an amazing relationship for the last almost 8 months. And so I say that because I'm now an evangelist for your work. I want to recommend your book to everyone. And I think you can, with the right transparency, you can do this in so many areas of your life, it sounds like.
Oh, I love that. I love your experimental phase. And I think first, the the more important an area of your life is, the more experimental you should be.
Mm,
Because you don't want to just commit to the first most obvious solution, which in dating could be a person. Just commit to the first relationship that kind of feels like it's okay, it's working, when you could spend a little bit more time figuring out what you like
yeah.
and also who you are.
Right.
Experiments are really a tool for self-discovery as well. And so I really love those experiments that you were running. And yes, absolutely. You can run experiments with literally any area of your life. I've seen people run experiments in their work, obviously, but also health, exercise routine, relationships. You can even, and I highly recommend doing that once you're in a relationship, really keeping the relationship alive by experimenting together, because you don't have to only do your own solo experiments. And so as a couple, you can say, hey, how about we try this thing for the next couple of months? How about we change this way of approaching our routine at home, or the way we split whatever the tasks, the chores that are. And again, very importantly, that's the experimental mindset. While we collect data, we withhold judgment. We're just trying the thing. And at the end of the experiment, we can sit down, we can have a nice glass of wine or tea or whatever it is, your drink of choice, and say, okay, what worked? What didn't? Do we want to keep going? Do we want to tweak it? Or do we want to stop? Maybe that didn't work for us.
That's coaching. Like those questions that you just asked, like what worked, what didn't, what made you curious, all of those things. I love that so much. And I love metaphors. As a coach, we use a lot of metaphors. And what I ask people when I'm talking to a client and we're talking about something that's out of their comfort zone, eventually we'll probably get to a place where it's like, well, what if we just try it between now and when we talk again? I use the metaphor of going to a clothing store. And I said, when you go to a store and the salesperson, you're there to buy a new pair of jeans, and you get 2 or 3 pairs, and you go back there and you kind of been chatting with the salesperson, and then they bring you like 10 pairs of jeans that you didn't even see, and maybe like 7 of those you would never even look at them, let alone try them on. And they're like, just try them on. You may love them. That's what I use that metaphor with my clients and say, like, I'm not asking you to buy the jeans or even like wear them after you buy them. Cause we've all done that. We've bought clothes and then they hang in the closet, or we try them on to like go out and we're like, nah, not this time, not this time. And then they have the tags on them forever. I'm not asking you to do that. Like, I'm just asking, like, what if you just tried it on in the dressing room? You don't even need to come out of the dressing room. And then I ask them, like, what comes up for you when you even just think about trying on the jeans? Because you have the option to reject it and like not tell the salesperson to go put those back. Like, even sometimes it can be helpful, even just to like think about the tiny experiment, what comes up for you.
Yeah, this is actually something I talk about in the book, which is a very uniquely human capability that we have, which psychologists call metacognition. And it's the ability we have to observe our own thoughts. So it's really thinking about thinking. And so what's really interesting in what you describe here is that you might think, I don't like the jeans.
Right.
They don't fit me, whatever it is you think. So that's the level 1. Level 2, and that's metacognition, is why do I think that? Do I think that because maybe someone made a comment once when I was wearing a similar style of jeans? Is that because at the moment I'm lacking a little bit of body confidence and these look a little bit too revealing? Is that because ... And that's metacognition. That's the ability to take that step back and observe the thought and ask yourself, wait a second. Okay, that's what I think. Fine, no judgment here. But why? Why do I think that? And when you start asking these questions, that can be amazing inspiration for experiments, because you could say, okay, maybe that thought is true, correct. Maybe it is my thought, but just in case this is a thought that I might want to change, let me actually try this experiment. If it turns out that I want to stick with that thought, that's actually why I think those jeans are not for me.
Right.
Great. But again, this is based on actual data I have collected versus this first kind of like automatic thoughts that I had when I saw the jeans.
Automatic judgment and assumption, which we're pretty quick to do.
Absolutely. This is a great
History. Yeah.
survival mechanism. When we have those automatic thoughts, it allows us to make decisions very quickly. When you want to survive, when you're in the jungle and you want to know if there's a threat or not, it's great to be able to have those automatic thoughts.
Or you meet
right?
some weird man at a party that wants to talk to you and you say, no, thank you. Like that. Yes. Quick thoughts and assumptions.
Exactly. And so that's great for survival, but I think we all agree that we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive, we want to evolve, we want to grow. And so being able to notice those automatic thoughts and question them is an amazing skill to develop.
I love that. And that points to curiosity, which is such a huge part of coaching in general, but also learning how to adopt that like self-coaching mindset. And that's what I want everybody listening to adopt. Like you can learn how to coach yourself. And I love, you said something really specific that I wanted to highlight. You said, just in case, I love that language. Like, just in case I don't want to, be married to this thought that I don't like these jeans because they remind me of jeans that my teacher had and I didn't like her. I might want to go back to that assumption, but the nuance of that statement, I think, is so important because it allows you to, it's not black or white. It's not like you don't have to completely throw your assumption and judgment away. Like, let's just put it on this other hook in the dressing room and look at this other one. It's brilliant. So brilliant. For people who are interested in trying this in their life, what have you found while writing the book and talking about it a lot, probably now, have been the most helpful tiny experiments that people can walk away with and maybe start this week in their life?
So really anything that you can do for maybe 5 minutes a day for the next 5 days or 10 minutes a day for the next 10 days, really starting tiny, tiny, tiny. And it can be something around your health. So I had one recently where I said that I would go for a walk every day, for example. Super simple because I had realized that I could sometimes stay from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. inside and just never see the sunlight.
Yeah.
And so that was a tiny experiment. That could be something around your creativity. That could be ideally something that feels just a little bit uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable, not so uncomfortable that you don't want to get started. So I would say anything you've been curious about, something you've been wanting to try, and something that you can do in the next few days. This way you can conduct your first tiny experiment, and then you can see if you want to do it again with a longer duration or something a little bit more ambitious. You can always do that later. But the first time, choose something really, really tiny.
I love that. I started implementing, and this is something I started with. I mentioned I'm in a new relationship. He's currently referred to as Dr. Fox, which I know is very mysterious to protect his identity. But I've always wanted to have romantic relationship where we do goals together. And so I decided, because I kind of took charge of it in terms of like the structure of it. And so I did it quarterly. So we just did goals in January for Q1, and then we're going to revisit them. And then we would update as the months passed. And then now, as you and I are recording this, it's the first week of April. So we have plans to revisit those and then adjust for the next quarter. And that felt better to me because it implemented the accountability piece, which was fun. And also it wasn't like for the whole 2025, which felt overwhelming. And there was so much at stake, so this seems to be working so far. Granted, it's our first, we're only in our second quarter, but this feels so much better and easier and allowing to collect data along the way. What works and what doesn't.
And beyond the fact that committing to it for an entire year is actually a lot, right? It can be a bit overwhelming. It also just completely ignores the fact that you're going to change throughout the year.
Yeah.
And so things that you're excited about in January might not be that exciting anymore in July or in September.
Right.
And so the fact that, you want to grow, you want to change, you want to evolve. And so you should have a process that embraces this, that doesn't create that artificial rigidity, forcing you to stick to whatever commitment you made back in January.
Yeah. I honestly feel like things would change a lot, even culturally, if we celebrated people who changed their mind about something big and quit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it with 2 marriages, and we don't celebrate that. Like, and I don't let me get on my soapbox about that whole thing. Like, my gosh, if we live to be 85 years old, and I have 3 marriages or maybe even 4, like that sounds normal to me. Like, I'm not the same person in all of these phases of my life, and so they're not failed marriages to me. Anyway, I digress. Before we close, is there anything that we've covered a lot, but is there anything that we missed or that you want to add on to make sure that you feel complete?
I think I would just like to leave people with a question, which is based on our conversation. And I just actually really love the wide range of potential experiments that we discussed together. Based on our conversation today, what could be a tiny experiment that you could try straight away in the next few days?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love leaving people with the challenge to take action, even if it's tiny, because I think that's even better. Thank you so much for being here. And the book is called Tiny Experiments: How to Live Freely in a Goal-Obsessed World. It's available now. That link is in the show notes. And so you are sending people to your website, which is ANNE-laure.net. That link, of course, is in the show notes. Anything else you want to tell people in regard to the book or anything else in terms of your work?
Besides reading the book, I write a weekly newsletter at nesslabs.com. So if you're interested, you can sign up there. And I discuss a lot of the topics that we talked about today.
Awesome. So that's Ness Labs, NESS labs.com, correct?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. I am just so inspired in your work and admire it so much. And just of course, anything around personal growth, but anything that is like specific and targeted like this, like chef's kiss. It's my favorite. Thank you so much for your time today, for being here. And listeners, thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is. It is a non-renewable resource, and I'm incredibly grateful that you choose to spend it with me and my guests. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the entire show. I wanted to quickly run through, if you are on the fence about joining How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, the 8-week experience, here's exactly what we're going to go through. Week 1 is all about values. That sets the foundation. Week 2, people pleasing and boundaries. Week 3, perfectionism. Then we have an integration week. We come back. Then we tackle the topic of numbing out. Then we go into control. Oof, that's a hard one for me. Week 6 is self-sabotage. I know that's a big one for a lot of you. Week 7, fear, resistance, and rewriting the script. Week 8 is integration and moving forward. All of these topics we're deep diving into to see what's underneath it for you so that you can find tools and strategies. I will help you find them, but find the ones that work specifically for you so you can move forward. AndreaOwen.com/habits-course. I hope to see you there.